Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. It's Sunday, which means it's stream time, and I am joined by a full panel, including one interloper who wasn't invited, but is always welcome. I have with me Bear the Gen X GM. I have Sean from Mages Musings, who did have a video drop today, so check that out. Sactus, welcome again. And Grubby Slan. I have not listened to your latest reading. I must do that. All right, guys. So what all you been up to?
Well, we had AD&D yesterday, so that was fun. The group got a little too bloodthirsty when one of their characters ended up in a death trap, and the villain was like, "All right, let's talk negotiations. I have terms if you want your friend back." And the paladin drew his sword and said, "No, we don't negotiate with evil," and attacked them outright, thus killing their only means of getting the other PC out of the death trap. It was very funny watching them squirm when they realized that.
Oops.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are fun moments. Those are the fun moments in games where the players are their own worst enemies.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So anybody else have anything interesting?
Yeah. I played Thursday. I played in TN Tori's DC 20 game, which was quite enjoyable. We were given a choice, which I unilaterally took for the rest of the party, though they seemed to be getting to go along with it afterwards. And it looks like we're in trouble now. And had the usual OSC session yesterday on the Old Geeks Discord.
Excellent.
Yeah, we had Bare Bones Fantasy on Thursday, which Sean played in, and as always, Sean's character is the most likable person in the room. I challenge you next game you play with me, Sean, to make someone pleasant. And we did Heroic last night with Bunny and Coco and Zane and all that fun craziness at Nerds and Nerd, and all that was good times. And I've made it official as of yesterday that I'm working on my BRP Hack Myth quest, and it's getting tremendous positive response. People are really getting into BRP these days. Like, it's kind of wow.
I think people found BRP when they started looking at other options besides D&D.
Yeah.
And BRP... Well, we've talked about BRP a lot. I mean, it really is kind of a gritty game if what you're looking for is a gritty fantasy, because it definitely has that harder edge to it than modern D&D.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be gritty either. I mean, it can be tame.
You can take out all that individual hit points by location if you want and stuff like that,
which I do.
Yeah. All right, Sactus, what have you been up to?
Well, I had my heroic game on Friday. The players have made progress, which is good. It was a very organized session where the players knew what to do. They went to do the things. There was, leads were given. They followed up on it. It was good. So they had a lot of fun. And I had my second edition game where they have now started the battle against the demonic lich. And they are seeing the shenanigans that are coming out of the lich's hellhole. There's a lot of creatures that are making their way out. The players have been throwing a whole bunch of spells to focus against the lich's minions, and I could not for the life of me roll saves if I needed to.
Can I just say that demonic lich is like the most Sactus sounding monster? It's like demon, lich, both bad in their own right. But let's squish them together into a giant rhesus of evil.
Yeah, because the entire thing is that the character is meant to be stemming from 1,000 years ago when the first gate to the abyss and hell opened up, and he was there as a part of it. So he's not a necromantic lich per se. He's just basically made a bargaining for his soul to get immortality.
So he's a lich with an alternate origin, basically.
Exactly. So he's got.
So there's only one thing I have to say to that, Saxus. Great.
What?
Did he go ahead and get me those TPS forms or anything like that, or I'm gonna have to ask him to come in on Saturday there, Saxus?
Oh, you on about whether he's a lawful creature or?
You've never seen Office Space? Oh my God! Your patron saint is the villain in Office Space.
Yeah.
What?
Office Space is a good movie. Anybody who's ever worked in cubicle hell gets that on a visceral.
I suppose I'll have to catch up then. Cool. Yeah.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
no clue.
The joke was
alone.
the only way
That's
to be
It's my
attached to this
stapler.
monster is if it had forms it had to fill out before it was allowed to do things in the dungeon. You know, like, I'd like to fight you, heroes, but I don't see your TPS forms here on my desk. So why don't you go sit in the alcove, fill those out? There's some pencils for you, and we'll talk after.
I mean, funny that you say that, because the players went into one of the Lich's layers and they did find that he had stuck 2 different entities from the quasi earth water and the earth elemental stuck in a loop, because the elementals, who were crystals, were only allowed to go and fight the mudmen once the light had been brought in, to then give a solar clock to a specific time. So they were waiting in pure darkness for that to happen, and the mudmen were told to keep on moving in a circle until the number went up to 100, but they didn't know what a lap was, so they never saw the number went up, so they just kept on going in circles. So I swear my games are fun.
No, I have not played anything yet this week. Let's see. Had to cancel my Monday game. Stuff come up, which really pissed me off, because all the I'm not going to go into the details, but all the stress that built up over that particular thing, and then that thing couldn't happen, only to find out that none of that stress was necessary in the first place.
Oh, yes. We had been talking about that behind the scenes. How did it all work out?
It hasn't, but that's okay, because evidently I have time. I didn't think I had time. I have plenty of time. So all that stress worrying about having to get it done on that last day because I procrastinated too much, and then finding out that I couldn't do it, and then being like, damn, only to find out that you had all the time in the world.
Oh.
Well, okay, without revealing the details, Saxius, I'd like to tell you a horror story, if I may. Imagine you're in a world where you have a date to get something done, and if you don't get it done by that date, a privilege that society has granted you will be revoked for a period of 90 days. But you need to gather your papers. But you haven't gathered your papers. Why haven't you gathered your papers, Saxius? Time is clicking down, Saxius. The papers, Saxius. Where are the papers?
I'm
That's
currently
a little
undergoing
Make a
that.
saving throw versus bureaucracy.
Oh, you forget that I don't. Maybe I didn't tell you chapter 2. The chapter 2 of that is when you finally go to get all of your papers, you realize you don't have one of the papers, and you don't know it's nowhere to be found. And then you think you're screwed, and then you realize that you've got like half a year to take care of it. So
No,
All right.
I've got. Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
no, but no, yeah. So that was the stress that canceled the game on Monday, because I was like, son of a bitch, I've been stressing about this, and then I'm like, and then I can't do it, and then I'm like, but I didn't need to stress at all. You know?
I hear you.
Yeah.
But no, it was fine. But let's see. On the back burner, though, let's see. I mean, I've been so I do have my game tonight. I have my 5e game tonight. And then I also decided I'm going to start putting together a Shadow Dark campaign, because I want to give the system a try. But other than that, yeah, not a lot going on. So I do not. I did have to like really reevaluate the amount of time that I was trying to force games in, which sucked. But like, I have to play them when it works. I can't play them just to play. So, but no. As far as like gaming in general, I mean, I've been kind of catching up on a lot of the history of D&D and stuff, like watching history videos and stuff on that. Oh,
Nice.
and my story took all the wind out of the sails of this panel.
Yeah.
You still got your toe dipped in the D&D sphere, so you're good. You're good.
Well,
Yeah.
I was in the opposite situation of you on Tuesday, where I'd been waiting for the bureaucracy to cough up the papers, which would allow me to stop doing this thing I had to do regularly, and I had to do it on the first of every month, or the first business day of every month. And I got the letter on the Tuesday, which was the first business day of September, just in time to prevent me from doing the thing I normally would have needed to do. So finally, that's done with, is all I can say.
Now, the good news is it's finally starting to cool off around here. So I'm not having to deal with, I mean, it was nuts. Like last month, we hit a day that was 112 Fahrenheit. I'm like, that's bullshit. That's just some bullshit. This morning I got up and I'm like, it's kind of chilly. Of course, it was 5 a.m., but it's going to cap out in the 70s, which is nice. But no, just kind of, I started working on some. I'm always working on projects because, like, in addition to running games and trying to play in games, I also like to tinker with rule systems. So working on a minis game with a friend, and I'm also still trying to cobble together some of my micro games. I don't know if you're for the older folks, you'll remember a day when you had the little polybagged war games that had the cardboard counters and stuff like that. I discovered my love of those a couple years ago. When I was a kid, they sort of went by the wayside. They didn't register as real games because they were these little polybagged things, and it just, in my brain, games were books and boxes, and they didn't register. And then realizing that some of the classic war games came out of those, and looking back, I became enamored by the amount of game they could fit in like 16 to 24 pages in that tiny little booklet format, sometimes even just a fold out. And trying to recreate that has become really fun. Just kind of trying to come up with weird retro.
Ogre came in one of those little things back in the day, and then my buddy backed the Kickstarter for the reboot of Ogre, and it came in a box so big it barely fits in the trunk of his car.
Well, that's because
the echo effect on, Bear.
What?
You still got the echo effect on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But no, the box set does include
How's it now?
everything that was eventually released for Ogre. So Ogre came out in that initial polybag, and then there were like 2 or 3, maybe even 4 follow-ups because they did Battlesuit and GEV and all these other add-ons to it. Same thing happened with Starfleet Battles and Starfire. Those are the kind of the 3 games that came out of the polybag scene that became big games.
It was a good way to test the interest in a game without spending too much on production costs.
Well, the other thing is it was a good way to get games out without having just playing, even not screw testing, actually getting games out, and people liked them. And later on, you would see it when some of the companies got big enough to have their own magazines, their own periodicals. In each magazine would be a whole ass new game because the center part of it would be a pullout, which is the rules, and the counter sheet was tucked in there, and because they were sold polybagged themselves. So it was a great way to get games out. And nowadays, with like everything being the world being so printer friendly and stuff like that, I feel like there's a place for it again. Especially considering you could always go to doing like laser cut tokens instead, or with 3D printing, you could even do an actual miniatures game and just have like 3D printed either tokens or miniatures. So yeah, it's fun to try and figure out how to fit a whole game into such a tiny space, and I think there's lessons to be learned there that role-playing games are only now starting to figure out. See, Shadow Dark, see OSE, any of these newer, cleanly formatted books that, yes, they still don't take only 16 to 24 pages. What is hilarious is that those 16 to 24 pages for the old polybag micro games, they'd still have art. So in the 16 to 24 pages, there's still art showing you the style of the setting and stuff like that. And they also had usually like a paragraph or 2 of lore, so you understood the basic conflicts they were doing. And of course, it's all that late 70s, 1980s science fiction or fantasy kind of conflict. The mind melding people of Mars are trying to take over Earth. Ack, 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 ack. But no. So yeah, that's the other. I mean, that's I'm always tinkering with something. I'm also trying to like do werewolf miniatures right now. But so Sean, you were telling me earlier about your plans for another tournament.
Yeah, I'm going to Seattle, another Overpower tournament. Wish me luck, guys. $1,000 US on the line ish.
Nice.
Nice.
It surprises me that a relatively obscure card game can pull prizes like that.
Well, what's interesting about it, I mean, Overpower back in the day was second only to Magic. And then Fleer ran it into the ground, and then they sold it to Marvel, and then Marvel ran it into the ground, and then a bunch of us, a handful of us, sort of kept the game alive, just playing private circuits. And now a couple of the guys within our group have basically gone through this process, created a company, bought the trademark for Overpower, and now are resurrecting the game. It's going to be a Kickstarter in a month, and they're hoping to bring the game back. And so they're figuring out new rule mechanics, because the problem with Overpower is it died because the people who made it weren't game designers. They were card designers. It was Fleer Skybox. They were making collectible cards. The game was just sort of a bonus, but the game was really good at its core. But they didn't know how to fix it. They didn't know how to create cards in the first place that were balanced and worked. And then their fixes got more and more ridiculously complicated. So there was a barrier for new players because it was such a hard game to learn at one point if you didn't already know how to play. And then by the time Marvel bought it, Marvel didn't know how to fix it. And then that was around the time the X-Men movie was coming out. And I think it was Top Cow came along and said, hey, we want to do an X-Men collectible card game. And so Marvel basically buried Overpower and killed it so that Top Cow could have, I think it was Top Cow, but one of those companies could have their X-Men game. So, but Overpower at its core is a really fantastic system. And so so it's just a bunch of us enthusiasts. I'm sort of halfway out the door. As a buyer for my cards, I'm out, but there's collectible value. But at the same time, going to Seattle is going to be fun. There's going to be a whole ton of new blood. So that's part of the fun, is playing with people I've never met. Although a third of our usual group is also going to Seattle. So
I just love to hear, again, to me, it's kind of an obscure game. I hadn't heard about it until you started talking about it.
Right. Well, 2000 is when they canned it. So it's a game that's been defunct for 24 years. So of course you wouldn't have heard about it. How many hero games have there been since? There was HeroClix, which was the supposed spiritual successor of Overpower, even though it's nothing like Overpower. And every other card game under the sun. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is apparently big and still going. Of course, Magic is the granddaddy, and it's still going strong.
The only superhero card game I ever played was pre-2000. It was a game, I think it was called Power Cards. It was pretty cool. It must have been in the 90s-ish because they managed to score a Spawn tie-in.
Okay.
But yeah, it was.
Are you referring to Wildstorms?
No,
because that was the one that had Spawn card in it for sure.
Well, no,
all the image stuff.
Overpower had an image set which had Spawn and other image characters.
So what you're telling me is that Image is just a bunch of whores who would put their cards.
What?
But no,
I don't believe it.
Fun
Yeah,
fact about the
possible.
Overpower image set is that because image creators kept all their individual rights, when they created the Overpower set, they had to go to each individual creator to get permission to cobble that set together. And when, of course, they got to Todd McFarlane, because they wanted to use Spawn, he had such ridiculous demands that they actually met, because Spawn did appear in the set. But Todd McFarlane wouldn't allow it unless Spawn was unequivocally the most powerful and best and desirable character ever that everybody would ever want to play. So they basically, pardon the pun, overpowered him. And so Spawn appears on almost every deck because he's ridiculously strong. It's kind of funny. Fucking Todd McFarlane.
What they could have done, what they should have done, is just made him super overpowered and then like banned him from the card playlist.
Well, I was gonna, yeah, or have an optional
Island,
rule: never play with the spawn card.
Well, this is all the tournament organizers. Yes, you can play, but no spawn.
No, I think what they should have done is, he's the best. And unless he plays the game, how's he gonna fucking know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
No,
like
this-
it has a very specific combination that you have to do in order to get to be make him the most, just so that it works within their module of like you got to buy more cards to do this. So it's like a combination thing
Yeah,
that's predetermined. But then he gets his deal, but they also go like, well, he's in there.
yeah, he has the highest potential, but if you get all these other cards to synergize with the spawn
Yeah.
card.
Which
Okay,
is
you
not
used the word
unusual for
synergize.
card
You have
games.
to leave now. Sorry.
Okay.
You're going to have to go think outside the box and paradigm shift somewhere else, sir.
Anyway, so that was the fun little fact about putting together this image set with
Yeah.
Spawn.
Yeah, it's funny, the card game that I was talking about, that I played, the superhero game, it's so obscure that you can hardly Google it. They managed to get a good number of cards out. I remember it was mostly I remember it being called Power Cards. And it was its own generic universe. And then they had a Spawn tie, and it was not Wildstorm because I just looked up the Wildstorm cards. And
1995, yeah, collectible card game, Power Cards with a Z because it's the 90s.
Yep.
Mm.
It's all X's and Z's.
Wow, that is some 90s ass art. Oh wow.
Yeah, but you see, I'm not just imagining things. But no, it was a pretty fun game. I remember it because you could build your team in your deck, obviously. And then you had like maneuver cards and boost cards. It was like any other superhero game. It got pretty cumbersome at times. It probably wasn't the best game, but we were into it, and we all had our decks, and we all had kind of our teams we had built, because it was a bunch of unknown characters for the most part until the Spawn set came out.
There's actually a video on YouTube about a guy opening up the Spawn Power Cards booster pack.
There you
There's
go.
3 videos of people opening up Spawn Power. Like, apparently that was a big deal.
So yeah, it was a fun game. I remember me and just my little local group, we were playing it, but we were all roommates. So just about anytime anybody got into something, all of us would of course start picking it up and playing it, because why not? It's like I mentioned in another stream how the local game store, not game store, but like computer game store, like a GameStop or whatever was out in the day, were clearancing their Jihad boxes, and they were like $5 a box.
Wow.
Nice.
Like not starter box, like
Booster boxes, yeah.
booster boxes for $5, and we were just going in there and buying them by the armload, and coming home and then like just sitting on the living room table and just ripping packs open. Okay, you got a Toreador deck, so here, you take all these Toreador cards.
Wow.
It was fun.
I love Jihad. Then it became Vampire: The Eternal Struggle. I didn't like it as much.
Yeah, it was one of those ones where we all played it, but I don't ever. That's just me though. I don't ever remember being good at any of the games. Like my friend Dominic, who played L5R, playing against him was really just an excuse to socialize because you were never going to win.
Yeah.
We
He
played
had-
a lot of them.
he
5
had
hours.
3 void wins under his belt, which is like the hardest win in L5R because you have to do it by getting all the 5 rings into play. He played a Phoenix deck, and he managed to get 3 void wins at tournaments under his belt. And I'm like, okay, my happy little dragon deck is gonna.
I'm gonna bow for honor, thanks. And my crab deck does nothing against your insanely powerful deck. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and he was one of those guys, though. I mean, it's just like he had anything he played, it was always dialed in. He was a power gamer. Not,
Have you ever played the Dune one? Have you ever played the Dune card game?
I did not. No.
I never played it either. I remember the card art was beautiful though.
Yeah.
One thing I did like about L5R though is because they eventually managed to get it to be an RPG, a miniatures game, and a card game. you could literally follow your faction through all of them. So like that's what most of us did. If you played, like I played Dragon in the cards, Dragon Clan on cards, but I also had a Dragon Army in the miniatures game. So just kind of kept the joy of the Dragon Clan rolling.
So when you have a black cat and they want food, they sit beside you and they stare up at you like that. But all you see is the yellow eyes because it's just black, right?
Mhm.
And you can literally just put F and D at the end of their eyes, and you'll know exactly what they want because the eyes make the O's for food.
Nice.
Jesus, this cat. Sorry, I apologize for derailing our scintillating CCG game discussion with cats.
RPG Dad mentioned the X-Files card game. I've
I
never
played that.
It's the internet. Cats will always make an appearance at some point.
Yeah.
I remember when the Star Trek Next Generation card game was huge.
Remember Star Wars from Decipher?
I was out of card games by the time that came around. Actually, I was out of card games by the time the Star Trek one came around. But I remember people just loved the TNG one. Well, actually, it was just Star Trek, and then started out with TNG stuff. But I think eventually they worked classic stuff in there, so you could actually do like time warpy card play. Okay, and I'm going to go through a time warp, and I'm going to bring in my TOS character. Yes, the eyes.
He's just being annoying because he doesn't like his food. So instead of eating it, he figures he'll spend all his energy trying to get me to change it to something else. He hasn't figured out after 3 years this trick never works.
Clearly, he still eats because he's not fading away to nothing.
You know what? He eats less than beans, but this is not fat. This cat is just a muscle with fur. It's disturbing. He's not a fat cat. Like I thought he was fat too. And then the vet looked at him and was like, "This cat's not fat. Cat's just thick." I'm like, "Yeah, with 2 C's." She did not get that joke.
My brother's cat, his black cat Boris, is also just like that, a big muscle. But my cat is fat. My black cat is fat. Ophelia is a chunk. So
Chunks are nice
Chunks.
though. Chunks tend to be very loving.
we joke that she ate her brother. Her brother did pass away, but we're just like, you ate your brother's soul, didn't you? You just like consumed him.
Do you guys ever watch? There's this channel on YouTube, KLR, I think it is. The guy does voiceovers to animal videos, and he's really good. Like they're really funny. But he has this one, like it's 3 times that I've seen this cat come up. Like you must be getting it from like their Instagram or something. And it's basically this house where they have like 3 or 4 cats, but one of them is this like super fat fucking cat that like just barrels his way through situations, and like literally there's him like climbing up on the counter and knocking all the other cats off the counter as he runs to the edge for the treat and stuff. And he just gives this cat the voice of Big Tim's here. No, Tim, watch out! Ah, it's just fucking funny. Every time I see it, I die. Man. Big Tim. Chunks are awesome, man. Chunk cats are the best.
Yeah. My friend actually managed to get his cat listed as his beneficiary on his insurance from work once. He had a cat named Loaf. It was a big orange cat named Loaf. The joke was it stood for lazy, orange, and fat. But his name was Loaf anyways, and then we came up with a meaning for it. And then when they called him on it, they're like, okay, you have a loaf listed as your beneficiary. He's like, no, it's Scandinavian. It's Loaf. And that flew for a while until he finally came into the office. He's like, I can't. It's my cat. Let me give you the real form.
Are you not allowed to list your pet as a beneficiary in Washington State or whatever?
I don't think in the U.S. you can list a pet as the beneficiary of your insurance.
You can in Canada. You can in Canada.
Really?
There have been lawsuits over it. There have been literal lawsuits over families suing because the death insurance, all the insurance, and the inheritance have been left to pets.
Oh, you can leave your inheritance to pets. It's just the insurance companies won't pay out to pets in most
Interesting.
cases.
Okay.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm not an insurance guy. But,
You think they'd pay out to the estate, right?
Yeah, that's what they do in Canada. They pay to the estate, right?
yeah, I mean, I'm sure you could get insurance for the purposes of covering your pets in the case of your demise, a form of life insurance. I just doubt that standard life insurance in the U.S. would cover it because the insurance here is stupid.
Oh, it's not much smarter in Canada. I don't know
Yeah.
about the rest of Canada, but in Quebec,
Explain.
there has to be an executor of your estate when you die.
Yeah.
There must be someone who handles all this shit, and they collect all the payouts from insurances and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and then they have to allocate it out. So
Yeah, it goes into trust or something like that. I mean, of course, we all know the wonderful, like, evidently, my eyes and my teeth don't count as medical.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
changing in Canada. Finally, next year, teeth are going to count.
It's so stupid
Yeah.
because your teeth can literally kill you.
Yeah.
No, not
Yeah.
just that, they're part of my body.
Well,
Yes.
but yeah, I mean, so many people die from
Mhm.
dental issues, and not just because they have bad, oral hygiene. I mean, there are things that can just happen because
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
crack. a
So,
tooth,
do you remember Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel? You remember Angel?
Mhm.
Yep.
There was the demon, Lorne, the lounge singer demon.
Yep.
Yeah.
That actor died because of a heart attack due to infection in his teeth.
Yes.
Mhm.
Coworker of mine, her husband came home from work one day, laid down on the couch to take a nap, and never woke up. Same thing. And
Yeah.
what
Well, welcome to the world of lobbying when there's insurance involved, and they want to keep,
I honestly think that the only reason that it's still like that to this day is probably because of just old entrenched, like you said, lobbies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, how are my eyes not medical?
So in Quebec, we handled the insurance, because insurance is there to protect you supposedly from being sued, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we handled that in Quebec really well by imposing Norman law on it. So it's basically not like you guys where you can sue over, like, literally Eddie Murphy's story about when he had the fight at the bar and the guy claimed that the disco ball reflection into his eyes caused him to sprain his eyes, and he needed $20,000 from Eddie Murphy for it and won.
Mhm.
We don't have that here. Like, the most goddamnedest thing you can do in Quebec is try and sue someone. Okay, like, it's going to be a nightmare scenario, and you won't get anything out of it at the end.
Yeah.
But we also have one-way no-fault auto insurance, which means I hit you, I pay my deductible and my repairs, you pay your deductible and your repairs, and both of us walk away. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have to fucking sue each other over shit,
Mhm.
and it works really, really well. So as such, we don't have massive insurance companies in Quebec except in healthcare.
Yeah.
Because that's the one place they still have their fucking foot in the door. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wish we had the no fault, one way, because like here in St. Louis is a big deal with people basically faking accidents. All of them. I've mentioned a couple times my car insurance doubled when I moved here.
Mhm.
Yeah, your insurance is cheap as fuck in Quebec. It's amazing.
Yeah.
When I was in BC, my friends were telling me how much their insurance was, and they were paying per month what you pay per year in Quebec. Like, Quebec has, look, Slan, you live here,
Yeah, I know.
There are some wonderful fucking policies in this province that protect us and take care of us. The problem is they're always slightly attached to the and fuck everybody who isn't French and we want to be our own country politics.
Yes,
You know what I
I
mean?
agree.
It's like,
I know exactly what you mean. The one thing about the insurance, though, so I once was involved in, it wasn't even a fender bender. The other car had, I kid you not, a 3-inch scratch on the hood because our two vehicles met. And I told the guy, look, it's a 3-inch scratch, a bit of putty. They can spray over the job. It'll cost you $150, $200 tops. Just get it done. And, I don't want the hassle. I don't want a record of this. We don't want our insurance premiums to go up. Just give me get that done. He sent me an evaluation for the repair of over $1,000. And bear in mind, this was 25 years ago or more.
Mhm.
And this included changing the entire hood of the car. There was a $70 charge to put the little logo. I said, you could have taken the old one from the old hood. That was still brand new. I said, I'm not paying this. This is a 3-inch scratch. Should take almost nothing to repair. I'm not paying this. I am still willing to give you that money. But if you want to get the whole thing replaced, you got to pay the balance of it. And he then went to his insurance company and lied about the date of the accident.
No.
Because there's a time limit to report an accident to your insurance, and we passed that. And then when I got the letter from the insurance, I called and I said, I don't understand because while I did have, an incident with this, it happened like 3 months before or whatever, 2 months before the date you indicate here. And it was a 3-inch scratch. I don't understand why he wants all these repairs done. The insurance company actually said, thank you very much. And I never heard back from them, but I'm sure they didn't pay out.
Okay, Slam, clearly that was a very traumatic experience. Here's a cyber hug for you, buddy.
No, it wasn't a traumatic. It was just funny.
Then, let me get this.
No, but it was just those insurance companies will be merciless if you try
If you try
fudge
insurance
them.
fraud here,
Like
they will
they-
fuck.
I had a friend who would go through incredible lengths to avoid insurance claims,
Mhm.
including rebuilding a dude's entire fence that he ran through. Now, granted, the short form of it, as he tells it, is I woke up going sideways through this guy's fence in my car.
Okay, so he was asleep at the wheel then.
He fell asleep. He was driving around way too much. He's a great guy. He's got a massive mind for business, but I've known him since he was just out of high school, or maybe even still in high school, because he was like the junior member of our gaming group. And at one point we had known him, and he had gone through more cars than years of life. So he's the only person I know probably the only person I know who's ever been threatened at gunpoint to drive better.
America. It's great on thee.
So we're driving through the mountains on ice-covered roads, and he's going 65. Squealing up towards his place where he lives up in this valley in Washington. And we've asked him, slow down. We've told them, slow down. We've threatened an ass-kicking, slow down. Finally, my buddy who's sitting next to him in the front passenger seat pulls his gun out and says, if you don't slow down, you'll be dead before we hit the ditch. And he's like, oh, so you want me to slow down? We're like, yes, we've been going on for the last hour, you fucker. Slow down. Where you kill us?
God bless America.
America.
Jesus Christ. My buddy pulls his gun. I've only been in about 3 conversations in my life that involved that line, and it was usually people I was working with who had criminal records at the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, holy shit, you guys are casual about guns.
Well, considering this is me too, who's not the most casual person in the universe, but I've
Captain Leftwing is also involved in a gun pulling incident amongst friends. That's disturbing.
4 of them.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, because that makes it so much
Almost an entire
better.
hand.
So, to be honest, so it's kind of funny. So, like, people are like, "What? You're anti-gun?" I'm like, "No, I'm not anti-gun. I'm anti-stupid." I'm like, I have had a gun pulled on me 3 times in my life, all by people I've known and considered friends.
Well, statistically, that's true.
Yes, the first time was the classic after-school special. Hey, Eli, come up here. I want to show you something. Now, there's 2 ways that ends, either in a penis or a gun.
You know, it's a 6 of one, half dozen of the other when you say that, by the way.
So I go up to his parents' room, and
Where Lode's getting shot.
I come into the door, and there's his dad's 44 pointed right at me. Now, in the after-school special, this ends with the bang cut to credits, right? This ended, and of course, in this case, I'm level-headed. I'm like, put that away, you fucker. What are you doing? I mean, mind you, we're like 13 when this happens. The second time was at a game store. I walked up behind a dude who was a friend of mine, flipped the hat off his head. I'm like, hey, fucker, like you do when you're in the night, when you're an asshole and you're screwing with your friends, right? You're like, hey, fucker. He pulls his gun out of his shoulder rig and puts it under my chin. In the middle of the game store, I'm like, what the holy hell? And then people are like, why didn't you kick his ass? I'm like, did you miss the gun?
Seriously.
And then the third time was a case of mistaken identity. I came home late at night.
My mom shot me. It was crazy.
Was
He laughed.
fumbling with the door, and I finally get the door open, come in, and I hear the slide go back on a pistol, and start calling out to the house. I'm like, buddy, I'm not going to name names, but I'm like, buddy, and he's like, comes out from around the corner in his underwear holding his pistol. He's like, dude, and then the story, like I said, mistaken identity. So he had gotten a car accident earlier that day, and exchanged information with the driver, and then when he got back from his errands, because it was just like a little fender bender coming out of his driveway, this carload of dudes shows up and starts threatening him. And the car that I came home in that night was exactly the same make and model they did. So at 2 a.m, he hears somebody fumbling with the front door, because I was a little intoxicated because it was my birthday and some other friends had taken me out. So I couldn't get the door open, and he hears somebody fumbling with the door, looks out his window, which overlooks the driveway, and sees that car in the driveway. And so he went on alert.
You know, as one of the 3 Canadians on this panel, I'd like to point out that our after-school specials usually involve, ice and, not
Maybe
fucking with wild
hockey
animals.
game.
Yeah,
That's the
yours
big
are all like
dramatic is, will they
I've seen
win?
these. I've seen these after-school specials. What the fuck, dude?
Well, that's one of the problems here. I mean, sure, it'll probably get me, once again tagged as the lefty, but like, again, I'm not against guns. I'm against stupid and guns. I mean, I like shooting. I don't own a gun because I have better things to spend my money on.
Yeah, like little pieces of plastic.
But I mean, I have friends who have plenty of guns. They've got all the guns I'll ever need. I just need to get to their house. But when I mean, the same guy I was talking about who pulled the pistol on the icy road, when we got out of high school, when we were in high school still, he was 18, and the minute he turned 18, he went to a gun show and bought an assault rifle off a table. So, and then we were out in the gravel pits the same afternoon, emptying that gun over and over and over. So.
Yeah, I like RPG Grandma. Guns make people listen. Yeah, really. Yeah, no, so do knives and cannons and invading armies and lots of things make people listen, including rational conversation.
No, you're just going
good
to go there,
arguments.
That never works.
My biggest problem with guns, RPG Grandma, seeing as you said it, is guns make it too easy. Too easy to make a life-changing mistake.
All right. So as a bouncer, I love telling bouncer stories. When I first started working as a bouncer in the 80s, the worst thing that was going to happen was maybe the guy was coming back with some friends or a knife. By the time I quit, bouncers were getting shot because guns make it too easy for pussies to feel like they're big men.
Yep.
And that's the problem. And that's a huge problem.
It's like when I was in high school, I never had to worry about guns in my school. And then years later, I'm hearing about guns in schools. I'm like, you were considered a pussy if you brought a knife to a fight.
Yeah. Well, that's the other problem. The 90s happened. And, sad to say, the go-go 80s macho shit died off real fucking quick in the 90s. And as a result, pussies got guns.
I remember watching an Errol Flynn-esque fist fight go up and down 3 flights of stairs in one of our buildings. We had a 3-story building at the school. They're like literally fisticuffing, sliding down banisters. I'm like, dude, where's the quippy retorts?
I was in grade 6 and I saw this guy get his ass beat in a fight because he and the other guy said, the guy's like, we're going to fight. And this kid was like a little isolated. The guy who was going to fight, the guy who got his ass kicked was one of those we worried about what went on in his home life because they were kind of weird and quiet people and all that. So we get to the parking lot at the end of the fucking day for the fight, 3 p.m. in the parking lot. And everybody makes the circle and the big guy's ready to fucking throw down. And the little guy starts dancing. And the big guy just punched him full in the fucking head, knocked him flat. So later we found out his friend was like, why were you dancing? He's like, well, I watched West Side Story. Isn't that how fights happen? So this fucking kid his parents never let him watch anything violent, right? So he thought that's what a fight was. He started dancing.
Wow.
Oh, dear.
Culture kills.
Dude, you put that in a movie, people tell you you're full of shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's the
Mhm.
beauty
Oh,
of
yeah.
life. Life has these weird events that happen, and you put that in a movie, people go bullshit. You know?
True.
It's like,
What's
Truth
the
is always
saying?
stranger than fiction.
Reality is stranger than fiction.
yeah, well, no, truth is stranger than fiction because fiction has to make sense.
Yes. My God.
Hey, Cody.
There's a great
Okay, well,
Edgar Allan
there
Poe
we go.
story
Cool.
where I don't know if you've read it, The 1002nd Tale of Scheherazade.
No.
Basically, it's Poe's spoof of the Arabian Nights, where he takes after Scheherazade has survived 1,000 nights, and she's telling the next story, and she talks about real life events, real life things in North America, the petrified forest and steam engines, and then she gets beheaded for making up such ridiculous bullshit.
That's still my favorite ever. We were playing a superhero game one time, and my buddy Mike was playing his samurai robot, anime robot Galvanos, and he was the leader of the team. And Mike had been reading Sun Tzu's Art of War as a side thing just because he really wanted to read it. So at one point, he's trying to get the two players who are playing the chaotic fucking characters who will never do anything right. And he casually, in character, tells them the whole story of Sun Tzu teaching the generals' wives how to be good soldiers, and then cutting off the head of the popular one because he put her in charge. So when other people failed, she had to. And I remember these fucking players are just sitting at the table staring at him with these looks in their eyes like, what the fuck is he talking about? Best role playing I ever saw in my life because he creeped them out in the real world. They were like, what the fuck? But that's the thing. That's fun, you know? Fucking cool shit like what he said with the cut her head off because she's full of shit and stuff like that. Like, I like when stories go down those roads and go into interesting places. Sadly, there's not enough of that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, hey, I actually got called a dick. Me.
Huh.
No, that's mine. Fuck you, I'll fight you for it. What did you get called a dick for?
For actually for making clarifying statements in a discussion.
Oh, well,
What?
now, what kind
Wow.
of fucking Nazi are you?
So I made my
Clearly a dick move.
I don't. It's hilarious. I'm like, my response purely diplomatic. I'm like, well, that wasn't my intent. I was merely trying to clarify my original intent. I'm sorry if you feel that makes me a dick. But he's like, his response, because there's a conversation online, obviously, so people are stupid. But he's like, this guy here being a dick to people, just responding to his post. I'm like, well, I mean, I could go off on a huge diatribe about the lack of reading comprehension in this discussion, but because my original post was actually I had to post it again because like the first post, I'm like, I'm not looking for dungeon stuff, and everybody's posting dungeon stuff. I'm like, I redid the post and like people would make these suggestions and I would respond to them, and then somehow doing clarifying remarks is a dick move. Just like of course we evidently using a period in text is considered aggressive.
Okay, so first of all, your first mistake was asking the internet for advice, right? Because this has been my experience with asking the internet for advice. Hey guys, I've narrowed it down that I want to get a circle. Now I'm not sure if I'm going to get a blue circle
You
or
need
a
a
red.
trapezoid.
That was
Which one would you create? Yeah, and there it is. Like, well, have you thought about a square? Why not a triangle? Have you thought about
I
green?
wasn't even asking for advice. I was just asking for people's experiences. So it was in the Shadow Dark forum, and I was asking because Shadow Dark has that reputation of being only good for dungeons, right? Which is not necessarily true. So I was asking for people's experiences using Shadow Dark for overland stuff, for non-dungeon adventures. Just looking for war stories, basically, and feedback. Not even asking for like suggestions, like literally, like tell me your stories. How did this work for you? And well, you should try this supplement. I'm like, no, I'm not looking for how-tos, fucker. I've been gaming for 40 years. I know how to do overland travel. I just want to know how the system handles it.
Can you all explain to me what it is about this fucking die, the D20, that turns everyone into a cunt for some reason? I'm on the BRP Central forums, and I ask a question, and I get, like, literally the most helpful and positive feedback. People will really say, it's not the way I would do things, but if you wanted to do it, you could read this group that published this thing on it, or you could try this system. D&D, say, hey, I'm playing BX. Has anybody made a feats for BX. Like, why the fuck would you want feats? Go fucking play 5e, you fucking fag. And you're like, whoa, Jesus, Nelly, calm down. What is it with the D&D community? Why are they so aggressive? Like, Shadow Dark is a D&D community, and you're already getting aggression from
Why the
them.
fuck you asking me that, Bear? Why did you aim at me when you said that?
I personally, I think it comes from the fact that there's a portion of the D&D community that feels threatened by new things. Sean is the good side of that. He's all like, this is where I'm happy. This is what I like to play. Play what you want. He's not going to call you a dick for wanting to play a newer form of D&D. He's going to be happy with where he's at. Too many people feel attacked, and I'm not even saying the young people, because we're seeing this in the OSR where the average age is like, what, 50?
Yeah.
And they're like, how dare you suggest that there's something other than the holy text of Gygax?
Okay, bottom line is games evolve. Otherwise, we'd still be playing that first 1974 edition of D&D.
Yeah, thank God.
They had to evolve it. Innovations will come in, some will work, some won't. Yeah, why are we prejudiced? And this is in life, not just in our role playing. It's like, are we still riding horses? Are we still riding that first model car? I mean,
yeah,
things change, things evolve, things grow and develop. Getting pissy about it is pointless, but people are going to do it. Okay, we were seeing the same arguments about electric cars as we saw about automobiles 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? And the fact is, yes, electric cars aren't the most efficient right now, but the technology will improve. But you're always going to get the people who are getting vitriolic because they're entrenched in a point of view, and that's no different to the role.
No one wanted a rational conversation, Sean. We just wanted to rage, man. What the fuck?
Oh, right. Fucking electric cars. God,
I'm going to say that.
fucking new D&D. What the fuck is with people?
Give me a
trying to put
horse-powered
D&D
vehicle right now.
Fuck Shadow Dark. Fuck that darkening bullshit. Goddamn.
There you go. All right, now calm down before your heart explodes, and fuck your BRP, your basic retard playing. We don't care about that.
You're not a real pro player.
Exactly.
Remember, of course, that gasoline-powered cars were going to set everybody on fire on the roads. But no, I think a good portion of it too also comes from the fact that a lot of people are just carrying the baggage for how they were brought up. I mean, how many people grew up with your dad ripping you a new one for the music you were listening to,
Oh,
or
yeah.
the clothes you were wearing, or how you cut your hair? So the only way that they learn to deal with things that they don't like is aggression.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and not just dads, mothers too. I mean, it's not just a single dad, right? We'll just say parents. But that's why you'll notice, like, and sorry, we're getting off on a weird cultural topic, but I've noticed that amongst like metalheads that I know, and I've known a lot of metalheads coming up in the 80s. A lot of metalheads. They are so defensive of metal, and all of their music is shit because their parents were constantly telling them their music was shit. So they had to feel that defensive reaction. They had to feel that, like, I'm the lone man on the wall with all my other buddies with their stupid studded leather jackets that are really dumb. Yeah, I get it, man. Trust me. I understand what you're saying.
Dad, mom, grandparents, older brother, other kids, whatever, it's like, it's
knew it. Sarah didn't have a dad. He just fell out of a fucking tree. I knew it.
Yeah.
I know it's pretty bad though. You're right. I mean, and the funny thing is, like, if anybody actually wanted to answer your question about feats in older edition, all they'd have to do is point to second edition, where the Celts had their warrior feats.
Yeah.
It was trying. Or Dragon magazine articles. I'm sure I haven't read every Dragon, but the fact is, if somebody wanted to actually answer your question, they could have. But no, they're just going to piss and moan about it.
But it's also the whole thing of like you
Saxis has been trying to talk for 5 minutes. Let the poor Dane talk before he goes crazy and invades us.
But it's also the whole thing of like they've got to get out of their comfort zones, and if they're all against, if you're stuck in the whole thing, if you only play this way and that way, and you're not at least willing to admit, I play within my square, I like my square, as Sean knows what he likes, fantastic. But if you can't at least say, like, this is where I am, so I can't help you, how are you going to go out and explore and find other things? I mean, with you, Bear, you're going out and exploring and finding a whole bunch of things that you're liking. You're stealing from other games. I do the same for many of the games that I do, but that then means that I can take other things from other systems and I can bring it into my games to make it more malleable, more foldable, like clay. And that's people are not willing to do that kind of work. So
I'm going to take umbrage with one thing you said. I'm not stealing, you fucking Dane. I'm Homaging.
No, I believe
what?
I believe the correct Danish term is pillaging.
Pillaging, hacking.
If it is not nailed to that book, it is for the taking.
No, but the thing is, even with what you said, Sax, just the fact of the matter is that you can easily not have an answer for somebody or not care or not care for what they're asking for and still be decent.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
God,
what,
Yeah.
that's what,
But that's gone. Like the civil conversation is gone from our society. It doesn't. And it used to be we used to say, well, it's just online. But I've now seen it in like Costco. You know what I mean? I've seen it in Walmart. I've seen it, and now for the Americans are going, and for us it's a bit different. It's like people tended to
it's still an answer. It wasn't always there here.
It's getting bad now.
Yeah.
Like it's legitimately getting bad.
I think
we've lost something.
it is the lack of the perception of repercussions. Because a good example, a friend of mine had his daughter in daycare. Shows up to pick up his daughter. Another kid is wearing his daughter's coat. Turns to the kid and says, "Hey, that's my coat." Kid's mom steps in, prove it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
But that was the thing. It's like it literally was like, how can you prove this is your kid's coat? I'm like, really? That's where we're gonna go with this? Like you're just gonna steal my kid's coat and think that it's okay.
Mhm.
And that's you see that all the time. Cut in line. You walk up and yell at somebody who's just doing their job and think that you're okay doing it. It's like, I don't
The
get it.
fact we have a term for super entitled customers who treat service staff badly shows how
Asshole?
rampant
Oh,
this is.
Karen. Sorry.
Yeah,
Karen.
Karen.
God, I know a few Karens, and it's so hilarious to
There
hear.
are a lot of great women out there named Karen who are, I imagine, not happy with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And while we're on the topic, mansplaining means man explaining.
I got so mad once because somebody's like, "I didn't need you to mansplain it to you." I'm like, "Well, I don't know what the fuck you know. I was just trying to explain something to you."
Dude, when I was working for Microsoft 365 tech support, I was dealing with this Australian woman, right? Because I was at the time where the APAC calls come in, and she's just going on because we canceled her account, and now she's lost everything she has, and blah 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 blah. Now, what you need to understand is 30-day notice, 90-day notice, 180-day notice. Then we cancel all your shit. They almost give you like a full year almost to pay for your shit, right? Like we give you and sending you emails. So I'm explaining this to her because clearly she's just a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
And out of her mouth comes, "Don't mansplain it to me." My fist hit my monitor so fast because I'd been like 35 minutes on the phone with her at this point. I was just frustrated, but I was keeping my calm, happy voice on. I punched my monitor so hard. The guy sitting behind me stood up, looked at me, and I'm like, I just pointed at the headset, and he's like, goes and gets the supervisor, takes the call over, and he goes, "You and me, we're going for a cigarette. Come on." And I quit smoking. He's like, "We're going to go for a cigarette." I'm like, "No." He's like, "We're having a cigarette." I'm like, "Okay, let's go have a
They're
cigarette."
just so happy to firmly entrench themselves in stupid. When I was in training back when I first started with the company I'm with now, I remember being in training and getting this guy on the phone, and he's a doctor. I can tell because it says PhD after his name because that's important.
Oh, yeah.
And he's on the phone yelling at me, betting me money that his TV doesn't have a power cord. I'm like, "I'm sorry, where did you get this magical Tesla television?"
Yeah.
And I know, and I immediately knew what it was. It was early 2000s, when people are starting to get those flush, nice wall-mounted TVs. He's got money, but he's too much of a dick to listen to me saying, "Yes, your television has power cords and cable attached to it because it's working. It's just not working the way you want it to." Because I'm trying to walk him through the normal troubleshooting of check connections, blah blah.
Mhm.
I'm willing to bet you money my TV doesn't have a power cord. I'll bet you money. I'm like, you're dead. I'm sitting on my desk.
Maybe that's why it doesn't turn on.
I'm sitting on my desk like, oh my god, what do I do with this guy? Because I'm still in training. I'm like,
Take the bet. He's got to be wealthy.
I mean, yeah. What there was? Speaking of war stories from the call center, there's one dude I talked to. I'm like, So I'm seeing, you got a lot of cable boxes in your house. I work for the cable company. I'm like, yeah, you got a big house. He's like, no. I'm like, why do you have I'm just asking. I'm like, you got 15 cable boxes. It's like, yep. I have one in the bathroom. I have one in the kitchen. I have one in every hall. Guy had TVs all over his house because he was a stocks guy and never wanted to not have his eyes on the
Mhm.
ticker.
Boy.
So walking down the hall, he's got
Yeah.
TVs.
Yeah. I said when I used to teach customer service and tech support to the new trainees, I'd always explain to them because in Canada, I don't know if you have it in the States, but they can, when they when you get a cell phone company, you can have a title added to your account. So we have Reverend, your
Yeah.
rank in the military,
Mhm.
and Doctor. I said, when you see Reverend, acknowledge it. They're going to tell you it's okay. Just call me Steve. When you see a military rank, acknowledge it. They're going to say, no, just call me Mr. Johnson. I'm not on duty right now. When you see doctor, you better fucking use it. You better say doctor every goddamn time you refer to them, because if not, they will correct you and tell you, if you say Mr. Stevens, that's Dr. Stevens. I do not understand what it is about the DR period that turns people into this level of egomaniac. Like, it's insane.
We went through years and years of school for
So,
that. You know?
I was on a forum online years ago, something to do, technical stuff, and this one guy asked like a very basic question, which I could answer, so I answered it. And this is like something everybody knows. To be specific, it was about image resolution. No, you can't up the resolution in Photoshop. You need to rescan. And the guy didn't like to be told he had to rescan. And he basically started insulting me for not saying, if you don't know anything, you basement, blah, 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 blah. But he'd signed his name with all, PhD, MS, BS, MS, PhD, whatever.
CUNT.
Yeah, exactly. But a whole bunch of people said, he's correct. You need to do this. He's correct. And then I responded, well, as you can see, the majority opinion here is that my answer was correct and it was not impolite. And, by the way, I don't dwell in a basement. I'm the parent in the household, and I don't need to add letters to my name in order to feel important. And then I signed my username, comma, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to Z.
Clearly, you were working for a smaller company where you can actually get away with that.
Well, no, that wasn't work. It was a technical forum I would access.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow. So you're just being helpful and getting shit. Yeah. Nothing better than getting shit for being helpful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or what I used to do
In
is
the
answer
corporate world, we have to have our inside voice.
Yes, I know. That I had to do. I used to do online tech support for customers. It's like, I can't open the file you sent us, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, please follow the steps I'm giving you exactly. And one person made me go through 15-minute procedure, and then said, and now I said, you should see this. And they go, no, I see that. I go, did you do every single step I did? Yes. Did you do the first step I asked you? No. Then you didn't do every single step I asked you to do. Therefore, that's why you're not seeing it. Please repeat the same thing.
When screen sharing became a common thing in about 2014, God, our lives got better.
Oh,
it was so much easier just to go click there, click that, drag that. And then they teach us, don't use the customer as a mouse. Fuck you. I want off this call. The customer is a fucking mouse,
Or if I can get control of their screen and mouse, even better.
All right, sounds
even better.
So the company I'm working for right now, our team in Wales are another level of special. I do not know how many times I have walked them through. And by the way, some of these people have been in the company for years and years and years. They were here when we shifted over from Brexit. I joined a month after Brexit happened. They have all been taught how to do export entries, yet somehow they do not understand how to do these things. I have made a step-by-step guide that is more pictures and bullet points than actual words to digest, to put it in a digestive fashion for them, and they still ask me questions. And I've finally gotten to the point of where I have consolidated enough evidence as I'm leaving to give it over to my department manager to go, you're going to have a word with them. And here's a long list of things that I've been doing for them. And you're going to have to talk to their regional manager. And you're going to have to lay down to them that his team consists of a circus. And whether he likes it or not, he's the circus master. And he's going to have to get them in shape because once I'm gone, that's the last thread of help that they're going to be getting because the rest of my team will not help them.
All right. So,
Mhm.
I'm going to have to end the stream here in a little bit. But before we go, and we're talking work stories, I remember being so jealous of a buddy of mine. He was a welder by trade, got himself a job at a local fabrication shop. And he's telling me about all these things that they would do at work. I'm like, how are they getting away with this? Like going out back and grabbing snakes and putting them in the guy's welding a little cubby, or terrorizing them by bringing in a clear container with the spider you caught and going over the guy who's totally terrified of spiders, letting him know that you have the clear container, then letting the spider out later, but leaving the open container on his counter in his welding booth, and going like, and then like watching for shrink wrapping your supervisor and dumping him in the dumpster. Things like, how are you guys getting? I'm like, good Lord, where are you working? And he tells me like part of their contract was there was a clause in his contract. This is a place of hard work and fun. If you're going to work here, you must consent to a certain level of horseplay. It was in the contract. If you're going to work here, you're going to fuck with people and you're going to get fucked with.
Yeah.
And I was amazed. I'm like, oh my God, how fun must that have been?
Yeah.
Great.
Do you
Honestly,
know
the guys who
one
afraid of
work
spiders-
environment?
True. But
There's a work environment where actually the overseeing body encourages this kind of stuff, and that's the International Space Station. They encourage practical jokes to keep up morale.
Well, yeah, you're in a can. You have to
Yeah,
do something.
exactly.
Remember that time we flushed Bob out of the airlock without a spacesuit?
I love the one where the guy had basically brought a gorilla suit up there and was going around the space station in a gorilla suit chasing the other astronauts.
Someone says I saw a really good meme the other day where they were talking about how it's going to take another whatever many days to get those Boeing guys back down to Earth with all the bullshit.
Yeah, it's going to
And
take till
someone goes,
February.
"Okay, all right, 8 billion of us need to get gorilla costumes pronto."
Yeah.
Yeah,
They don't need 8 billion. They just need some people on screen and the people.
Okay,
who
the joke was funny with 8 billion, dumbass. Jesus. I'm Sean. I kill
Yes.
The
comedy.
joke was not funny because it's stupid.
Yeah,
So
but the
that
The joke
logistics
was
weren't
funny
right.
'cause you're stupid.
Having grown up in Boeing's backyard, it's actually really sad to see what they've become.
yeah,
Because it used to be like every adult male in my life, or even and a good chunk of the women, worked at Boeing in some capacity. That's just how it was if you lived in the Seattle area. Remember when Boeing was almost out of business, and Boeing was like the lifeblood of the area. So, watching the crap that they've become
Mhm.
is just horrible. Of course, when I worked there for a short period of time, listening to some of the shit that the guys working on the planes did, I'm like, I want to fly again. There was one guy who would come in every day, clock in, climb up on top of a fuselage and go to sleep for his shift and then come down. One guy got bolted into a wing because he was in the wing, inside the wing, stealing a nap on his shift, and they closed up the wing panels while he was still in there. I worked in a kitchen there. I wasn't actually building planes, and on the breakfast line, guys would come through just reeking like a brewery. I'm like, you're building the next plane I'm going to fly on? But
As long as he's not the pilot. It's just reeking.
I don't know, man. You have to keep a certain number of bolts on that plane for it to keep working. But no, it's just, it's kind of, like I said, it's just kind of sad to see, with what they've kind of become. But again, it's like everything else. They just kind of tanked over the years.
It's the end of the world as we know it.
All right. Well, I will have to call it a.
Yeah, I got to call it anyways. I got to get ready for my other stuff. But
No, it's the end of the stream as we know it. then. Jeez.
non-gamey stream today. But
Hey, we talked
It's fun though.
so good.
yeah.
Nothing more fun than a bunch of old men telling war stories, man.
yeah. But
An
Oh,
ordinary
sorry.
old
And
man.
a young fellow amongst
Ah,
us.
dang.
You all-
anybody, everybody who came on today, thank you very much. Everybody showed up in the comments. I'm also a horrible person to be on stream today because I'm fucking tired. And so I'm gonna have to. I'm still up for another hour or so, and then I'm gonna go grab a nap. So
That's where I'm heading right after this. I'm just going to go lay down, wait for the cats to come, and go to bed for an hour.
all right, have fun, guys. Thanks for everybody who
All
showed
right.
up. Later.
Bye.
Hey, everybody.
Bye.